Hi, welcome to BYD Owners Weekly News number 5. For those that have watched the others and have come back, thank you very much. I do appreciate it. It's hard to know exactly what everybody wants, but I'm just trying to bring news. So today it's a shorter one. It's about BYD and their vertical integration. It's about charging stations that are being rolled out on telegraph poles. And I'm going to talk about hydrogen and what's driving the push to have hydrogen in our cars. I never thought I'd be talking about that, but we are. So BYD made a fairly big profit. It was 22% of its sales. That's a massive profit. And the reason, I don't begrudge them at that, because the reason they've been able to do it is they have vertical integration, a lot of vertical integration. So what that means is they own all the stages of manufacture. They own the manufacturing of all the battery, as you know, all the electronic components in the management system itself, all the way through. I don't think it makes it tyres, because they wouldn't call them Batman. But you know, they make a far more of the componentry than most of the other manufacturers, and consequently they can make a very large percentage profit. Now that's vertical integration from manufacture to completion of manufacture. What they're doing now is they're going to increase their vertical integration from the start to delivery. And what they're going to do, and what they are doing, is they're building ships. They're building ships to deliver their cars all around the world. So at the moment, as you know, they're in Europe, they're in Asia, Australia, New Zealand, Mexico. Did I say that right? And South America. But not yet. But soon, I'm sure, to the United States of America. The boats, what are they? Well, I believe they're looking at 10 altogether, but they put an order in for 2. And the 2 they put an order in is going to cost $400 million. I'm not sure if it's US or Australian, but anyway, it's dollars. And these ships are big. They can carry 7,000 vehicles. That's a lot of vehicles. And the boat itself is over 200 metres long. It's 38 metres wide, and it needs 9 metres of water just to float. So, and it travels about 28 knots, I believe it travels at 28 knots, which is about 50 kilometres an hour. So it's no slouch. So when they've got 10 of these, they'll be shipping their cars all around the world and saving the cost. So they won't be held to ransom by shipping companies. They'll just put them on their own ship and bring them out. Okay, so that's vertical integration by BYD. So if you are an owner of BYD or thinking about it, you can rest assured that they're going to be around for a long time. With that sort of healthy profit margin, with that sort of focus on vertical integration, all they've got to do now is get their marketing act together. Nobody knows who they are. So they need to get their marketing act together, and after a sales service, can I say that? Anyway. Okay, so I've seen a lot of videos and people have said to me, why don't we just put charging stations on telegraph poles? They're everywhere. There's the electrical wires are just up the top. And that makes sense. Well, anyway, there is a company called IntelliHub who is rolling out these charging stations on telegraph poles around Sydney and also up in some of the regional areas of New South Wales, I believe. They're 22 kilowatts, so they're 3-phase. and their Schneider Electric are supplying them. The beauty of this too is that it's now economical to do this. So the devices, I understand, to supply and install are about $20,000 each. Now, that means, and they're charging around 50 cents a kilowatt. It's probably costing them about 15 cents. So they're making about $35 cents a kilowatt profit. So if you look at buying a $20,000 vandal-proof, tamper-proof charging station plugged onto the electrical wiring, then it's economical. I mean, why wouldn't, well, I don't know, I would, my wife probably wouldn't let me, but any company who wants to invest in electric charging could put one of these $20,000, I mean, you got to have the approvals and that, but put a $20,000 investment on a pole, and people come and they get 35 cents for every kilowatt hour that comes out, profit that is. So that's really, really good. And why it's good is because in a lot of suburbs in Sydney, particularly the more affluent ones, they have an uptake of EVs double the rest of the country. So almost 1 in 4 vehicles sold, new vehicles sold in a lot of these suburbs are EVs. Now, but also in those suburbs, a lot of residents don't have the ability to charge at home. They either don't have a garage, or, off-street parking, or if they do, they don't have they're in units and they can't do charging in units. So it makes sense that these people can charge out on the street at the nearest electric pole. So it makes sense that they can just roll out and at the nearest, because they'll probably be having off-street parking anyway, and if they don't, they can do it for 2 or 3 hours. So 35 kilowatts per hour, an Atto 3 can be go from empty to full in 3 hours. That's pretty good. Okay, the next thing I want to talk about is hydrogen. Remember last week, I don't know if you saw last week, but last week I said how the Vice President of Sales, Australian Sales, stated that Australia isn't ready for EVs, that there's not enough infrastructure for them, and they just don't fit the reasoning. And I thought the reason is they weren't manufacturing EVs. That's a good reason for them to say not to buy them, I suppose. But it turns out there's even another reason, and that is that they're going hydrogen. So they've teamed up with Ampol and rolling out hydrogen stations around the country. There's about 10 at the moment, and they're getting the backing from the government. The government's buying hydrogen cars. So why is this? What is this? Why would a company like Ampol and a company like Toyota believe that there really is a future for hydrogen in cars when there's so many EVs around and everybody's been pushing EVs? Why would they think that? So a few reasons I've found out. One reason is that the government is getting worried about its ability to be able to supply electricity to all of our needs, including a large percentage of EVs from their solar, wind, electrical grid. There is some doubt as to whether they're going to be able to supply that electricity. It's clear that they're not going to go nuclear. They don't want to go nuclear, which I won't get political, but I think it should be looked at. Clearly they want to shut down all the coal-fired stations that are around. So there may be some truth in the fact that we may not be able to, or the electrical grid may not be able to keep up with all of our needs, including EVs. But that's not the only driver. The other driver is money. So there's a lot of money in setting up and running a hydrogen plant, a plant to produce hydrogen. It's very, very cost effective, very costly, and but it's a good return. I mean, just, you know, people, these companies are investing. I mean, they can't invest in mines anymore because they're being closed, but they can invest in a hydrogen plant. So there's a lot of money pushing to have customers for these hydrogen plants. So I mean, it's really big money, billions of dollars. That's still not the only. They're not the two drivers. Another driver is the money as well, and it's the infrastructure that we use to take petrol to service and diesel to service stations. And you know, there's thousands of trucks on the road, tankers that take petrol to petrol stations. What do all these thousands do when nobody wants petrol anymore? So what they want to do is convert them across to tankers transporting hydrogen. Well, that makes sense. So there's a big push for that to happen. And lastly, there's all these service stations everywhere. Now, if they're putting electrical charging stations on poles, and people are putting them in their homes, why would the need to have them in petrol stations and the need to have petrol stations at all isn't there? And there's a big driver for petrol stations to stay open. They've got the land and the leasing and all that sort of stuff, of course, but they also have the ability to sell, you know, cans of Coke for $4.50. So that's the other driver. So even though hydrogen costs twice as much as petrol, there are still, so it doesn't make a lot of sense to anybody except money people. And Toyota and Ampol seem to be pretty committed to hydrogen. I mean, they're going to roll out these stations, and I don't think there's any cars that are actually being marketed in Australia other than Toyota that sell hydrogen, and I don't think they're that easy to buy. So watch this space. You know, if they had their way, we'd be trading in our EVs, our 803s and Dolphins and Seals for hydrogen. I think it's going to be pretty hard because there's a lot of manufacturing infrastructure, particularly in China and Europe, manufacturing EVs. And you hear lots of, you know, Mercedes and these companies switching across to EVs. You don't hear them switching across to hydrogen. Anyway, that's my take on the week. Let me know how you think. If you want me to change the format or add other things, press the like button, I suppose, if you want to. Ring the bell, push subscribe. There you go.